DDG, episode 32. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How is it going?
It's going okay, other than hurting my hand, which many of you saw on social media this week.
Yeah, you got a nice flesh wound in your hand now.
All right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that releases every Thursday at 6 a.m. on the podcast services of choice. If we are not on a service that you use, please let us know. You can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, anywhere. Send us an email, podcast@digitaldaysgaming.com. Multiple ways that you can reach us. All of our info is in the show notes that are attached below. Like I said, we are weekly. We debated about not recording this week, but we decided that, again, similar to all the stuff that's been going on in the world the last couple of months, that even with the things that are going on in the world, and in particular our country over the last couple of days, that it is still important for us to provide weekly consistent content for you. So with that in mind, I'm going to let Michael address it a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll just keep it brief at the beginning of the show. If you haven't been paying attention to the news, everything's kind of on fire right now. I'm in Chicago, so haven't been sleeping the last couple of days that well, just because right now it went from peaceful protests to basically riots and looting the last couple of days. Like, as we speak right now, the suburbs are being looted, and like if I look out my bedroom window, I see just a group of cops waiting, protecting a store. So it's kind of crazy right now, but it's definitely been disappointing watching everything the last couple days, watching protests peaceful get deterred and turned into something very violent. But it's one of those things where I don't want to speak to it too much. There's people that are more articulate that can handle this conversation. Definitely one of those things where I feel like me and Dave, as two white guys, we can't really speak to the cause or the matter. So definitely would recommend checking out Khalif from Spawn On Me. His content right now is definitely worth checking out if you want to hear the perspective of the voices more directly affected and involved in what's currently going on. So just, wanted to say, if you follow me on Twitter, you see I've been pretty active with everything, with supporting the Black Lives Matters campaign and the protests. So, we're going to just try and entertain you guys with some video game stuff, but felt like we needed to at least address it and show some sort of support. But again, check out Spawn On Me. They're doing really good work right now. So definitely check them out if you want a more information, for sure. Check them out.
Yeah. So yeah, just treat everybody like you want to be treated. Like I know it's an old saying, but just be respectful of everyone, please. You'd be in a better place.
Yeah. And don't get deterred or too distracted by some of those crazier stuff happening right now. People just want change for a better life, and some people are taking advantage of that and causing chaos, but don't lose sight of the actual goal and purpose of the protests and the movements.
All right. Like we mentioned before, all of our social networks are linked below. Some of the stuff that could help us tremendously, though, is if you follow our Twitch channel, if you subscribe to us on YouTube, if you have Amazon Prime and you choose to use your Twitch Prime sub on us, that is super helpful. And the number one thing that you guys can do to help us is just to share the show. When we post on Facebook or we post on Twitter, retweets, and clicking share on Facebook is a tremendous way to help us. There's a lot of people on social media lately. Some good, some bad, some indifferent. People have a little more time on their hands, but maybe showing them that, this is what I do to entertain myself on a weekly basis. If you're into games at all, maybe check these guys out. helping the show grow would be tremendous. And then again, joining the groups, following us on social media. Statistically, there are more people that listen to this show on a weekly consistent basis than are following us on those social platforms, whether it's Twitch or Twitter, Facebook, any of those things. Not that I expect those numbers to be 1 for 1, but if you haven't followed us on any of those, please consider doing so. We would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it definitely helps us when we talk to. I know especially the last week or two, me and Dave have kind of like offhandedly mentioned me reaching out to developers and publishers that we would want to work with, and it really helps for us to be able to point at something, because a lot of time the people are really busy, so all they can do is do a quick glance at our social and check out some basic statistics, and if those numbers are too low, then they move on. It's just the way the business works. So
even if you make a Twitter account or make a Facebook account and give our page a thumbs up or a follow, and then don't use it ever again,
yeah, or
still
mute
helps.
us. Yeah,
yeah.
We don't tweet
Still
that
helps.
much on the main account, so you won't get like too bombarded by stuff. It's just like, hey, new episode is posted.
Yeah. So, or we post a trailer or something like that usually. So,
yeah.
All right. We're going to jump into some of the news right away. So go ahead, Michael.
Oh man, I feel like the first news story, I really could use this now than when I saw it last week. But the first ever Wholesome Direct was released, which I feel like this kind of just came and went. So this was about 50 indie developers came together and had a like state of play Nintendo Direct style event for wholesome games. So some non-violent, or if there's any violence in any of these, it's not too, excessive. And this was just exactly the name. It was a wholesome event. If you like indie games that are bright, colorful, there doesn't seem to be any. I think there was like 1 or 2 post-apocalyptic games, but they are a completely different twist on it. But this was a actually really good showcase of a bunch of indie games that otherwise wouldn't have probably been included in any events, just because they might not pop in between like a The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima trailer and a state of play. And it's about a half hour long, because it's 50 games. So they really got in there with trailers, and then you got to hear from a couple of the developers in between the trailers. It was a really nice presentation. There's some really cool stuff that popped up in this presentation. Couple that caught my eye, Chicory, which is, I pulled it up. Chicory, you're a dog wielding a magic brush. Use your painting powers to explore, solve puzzles, and make friends in this adventure game. So it's an adventure game that it's without color, but you control the brush and you start adding color to the world. It has really like nice art style, like hand drawn, like almost childlike in some of the drawings, but it's really cool looking. Skatebird popped up in there as well, because it seems to always pop up in the last year or so at indie events and things like that. There's another one, Oa, Hoa. I might be mispronouncing it wrong. It's a platforming adventure game with hand-painted art inspired by Studio Ghibli. Explore meticulously crafted scenery, make friends with magical creatures, and collect memory fragments as you piece together a long history of Oa. And there's just a ton of stuff. Some of the stuff is already out on Apple Arcade, PC, Switch. Fold Apart was a part of that. That is currently out. And then the games are coming out like later this year and next year. A lot of PC and Nintendo Switch specific announcements, just because the Switch has become the go-to indie platform, which still don't quite understand how Sony and Microsoft kind of lost that like indie push, or why they moved away from that. Like, they still get indie games, but it just seems like they all are gravitating towards the Switch as their console of choice. It's almost as if they passed the baton. Xbox 360 had the indie games, PS4 then had the indie games, and now the Switch has the indie games.
I feel like it seems to be whichever company feels like they're struggling in their library for a while.
And then it boosts them enough. Like the 360 wasn't struggling, but it like was the summer of arcade. Was really popular. It's where we got Braid and Castle Crashers. And then Sony took a really big initiative towards the end of PS3 and beginning of PS4. That boosted them, and then Nintendo's just been running away with it. Definitely check this out. This definitely is filled with a lot of games that probably were going to be in the Nintendo Direct in June that got canceled, or in whatever Sony was going to do and Microsoft were going to do with this E3, because a lot of this stuff seems like it would be in that sizzle trailer that would be in these press conferences.
Or it would have been on a show floor, like in the IndieCade booth that you and I would have been able to see and play and say, hey, this was really fun. And this is the part, the part that kind of concerns me is that, again, like we've been talking about, nothing replaces hands-on impressions. Hopefully this 30-minute feature on these games will shed some light and sell some units versus me talking about it or making a video about it, or us talking about it on a nightly recap of like, hey, I really had a lot of fun with this, and then 2 months later when it comes out being like, I remember this and this was great.
Yeah. So. Well, let's like this released last Tuesday, and I didn't know about it.
I didn't see any press about it. We usually get some press about indies all the time.
Yeah, and I didn't really see anything about it until like Thursday or Friday. But it did hit over 100,000 views on YouTube, so
nice.
It definitely reached a decent amount of people.
It's good.
But I just wanted to highlight that if you need if you want to watch something for 30 minutes, you'll probably see something you like, because they have a wide range of different games here, and they all look family friendly and like wholesome, so they stuck to the name. But we'll move on to the next story. All right, so this one, not crazy surprising given the circumstances, but it's definitely one of those things that I just never thought of. But let me explain it a little bit. So Bone Loaf Studios, they are the developers of Game Beasts, and they are going to keep the game alive by self-publishing future updates with the game. And I know that may sound weird, keeping Game Beasts alive. I would say it's like a cult hit for multiplayer games. It's been around for years. But the reason they had to make an announcement that they're keeping it alive is because the game was originally published and funded by Double Fine Entertainment, or Double Fine Productions, because they had a publishing arm that would produce or would publish indie games. Some of the games were Samurai Gun 2, Kids, Knights and Bikes, Game Beasts, Nog, Everything, 140. Like, there's a fair amount of games that they were publishing over the last couple years throughout the Xbox and PS4. But last year, Double Fine Productions was purchased by Microsoft, which Microsoft purchased the studio Double Fines and had no interest in continuing Double Fine as a publisher. So there was reports that they were winding down. If you go to Double Fine Presents page, it said that they are no longer publishing games, but that kind of left the developers that are part of that publishing arm kind of in limbo in terms of how to support their games. And Bone Loaf, I believe, is one of the first studios that's like, we are going to continue to support this specific game with updates.
Yeah, and we're almost a year out from when the announcement was official that Double Fine was purchased by Xbox. So it doesn't surprise me that certain things were probably contingency clauses in their contract, and we're getting close to the time where, they're still finishing up their contracts with certain games, or coming to the point where, okay, extension is up, and Microsoft's like, yeah, well, we're not publishing anymore. So it's not a huge surprise. It kind of falls under the duh spectrum, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you think did Bone Loaf do well enough that they can self-publish? And it sounds like they feel like whatever they're going to be releasing for Game Beats does not, that they can self-publish, and they don't need a third-party publisher, whether that's Double Fine or anybody else.
Yeah, and I wonder if Microsoft maybe would have extended to where we'll publish their games, but apparently that was not the case, just because Microsoft has no problem publishing their games on other platforms. But it's good to see that Bone Loaf is confident enough in Game Beasts to continue to support the game, and they said they already are going to release like a patch for balance and bugs, and I guess that would be paid for by them as opposed to Double Fine Presents, and then they are going to continue to add stages and costumes to the game in the future. So they are already promising future content for Game Beasts and not like a Game Beast 2.
It always gets interesting to see how this stuff works, and you find more and more stuff out as some of this stuff happens. Like, I feel like, as an example, like like a self-published Destiny is definitely, and again, they changed the model of how they distribute content, but I feel like that game is getting good, bad, or indifferent updates on a more regular basis than it was when Activision owned them, and either it just makes you wonder, like, as a corporation, we already know that Activision can be like a penny counter. But I mean, was it like a negotiation or a debate back and forth between Bungie and Activision of how many updates you get to release, when you get to release them, how many of them come out in a quarter? What are they? Or like, hey, we really need to do this. Like, this is broken. Versus now, they're like, it's broken. Make an update. Push it. We'll deal with it later. And this could be a similar situation for Bone Leaf of maybe there is more things that they've wanted to put into content on a more regular basis, and there's a possibility that Double Fine's like, we really want you to save that for like another package, like a DLC package. Like, I don't know enough about Game Beats to say if that is or isn't the case, but maybe instead of them making all of their all of their costumes like $1 a piece microtransactions, Double Fine came to them and said, we want you to take the 10 costumes and make it a $20 pack.
Yeah. But like for Game Beasts in particular, they have Rick and Morty DLC. Not saying that they wouldn't want to do Rick and Morty DLC, but that could have been an opportunity only through Double Fine that they were able to get to add Rick and Morty DLC to it. That either means they can go whatever avenue or route they want for their costumes, or that means they won't be able to do partnerships like that before.
Well, and it also means if they came to them and said, hey, we got a really good idea, like they came to Double Fine, a year ago and said, hey, we've got a really good idea for some costumes. And Double Fine's like, yeah, we don't care. Just use these ones because we have a contract with them.
Yeah. Like, oh, we have an Adult Swim contract. We don't have a Nickelodeon contract.
Right.
All that sort of stuff could play a part in it. So I'm glad there's going to be support for it because I love this game. This is one of those games that I bust out every time I have people over, and I'm hoping to have people over one day eventually in the future when we're allowed to have that. But till then, I'll play against bots. But I'm glad to know that next time I load it up, there could be new content for me and my friends to play on it, so we're not displaying the same stuff over and over again. But it was definitely one of those ones where you're like, it's like a duh moment. And it's definitely one of those ones where when I saw the story, I'm like, that's weird. And then I realized like, oh shit. Yeah, they totally were a publisher.
Yeah. When you read games. It, you're like, huh? Wait, what? And then you're like, oh wait, they're owned. It's like, and it's not like, again, like as much as Gang Beats might be a great game, it doesn't carry the clout that Minecraft carries. To where like when they purchase Mojang, where it's like, what's going to happen to Minecraft? And everybody's like, whoa, just relax. Like, we're going to still publish Minecraft. We're going to publish it on multiple platforms. We understand what it is.
Yeah. And if Microsoft wanted to purchase the publishing arm or keep it going, they definitely have the money to keep the publishing arm going.
I figured they would have just absorbed it, though. Like, you wouldn't have seen anything like published by Double Fine. You would have just seen published by Xbox Studios.
Yeah, which I'm almost surprised that we didn't get any announcements from these studios of like, we're published by Microsoft now. But contract stuff can be so specific to where it's not as easy, like, as just being like, oh, we have new owners. It's like, no, the specific contract says Double Fine publishes us, not Microsoft. So
right,
all sorts of like weird technical stuff can be in that contract. All right, next story. News-wise, I went for just the most random articles, and there seems to be news going. I feel like game industry's waking up because it's June and we have all these events lined up. So we're starting to hear more and more random stuff. But this one, the Take-Two CEO says Stadia overpromised. So Strauss...
No,
yeah.
Really?
So the Take-Two CEO, Strauss Zelnick, he was speaking at it's called the Bernstein Annual Strategic Decisions Conference, which sounds like a boring conference only attended by CEOs. But he was talking...
Dick.
Yeah. He was The annual strategic decisions is just like such a boring name for a press conference.
Throw Bernstein in front of it to make it sound better.
Yeah, just to make it sound like a legitimate thing, but this like annual strategic decisions conference. So he was talking some smack about Stadia, but from a very business standpoint, which I think is very telling once we get through this quote. So he said during some sort of presentation, or someone asked him questions. The launch of Stadia has been slow. I think there was some overpromising on what the technology could deliver, and some consumers disappointed as a result. So some consumers were left disappointed as a result of some of the overpromising. Which, yeah, I can say, like Dave, we both use Stadia. I think I have to cancel my 2-month membership that I got free in a couple days, and I got to remember to do that. But yeah, like, they did not keep their promises, or they kept their promises, but it just wasn't as good as we were expecting.
I don't think it's delivering on the points that we would have figured it would be 6 months out from launch. I think everybody was giving it a little bit of slack, like, oh, it's early bumps, like you're starting a new technology, like you'll figure this stuff out. But, finding out that, stupid things like you can't connect a controller to your TV, you have to use the Stadia controller. Just weird things like that you would have thought by now. If your whole concern is, using the cloud, then you should need to make it as easy as possible to use the cloud. And I don't feel like that's the biggest thing they're not doing right now.
Yeah. It took them like 3 months to green light or whitelist everyone else's Chromecast Ultras to be usable with it, as opposed to just the ones from the Founders Editions. A lot of missteps. He continued on to say about Stadia, anytime you broaden distribution, you potentially broaden your audience, which is why we supported the release of Stadia with 3 titles initially, and will continue to support high-quality streaming services as long as the business model makes sense. Over time, I believe streaming will work. The belief that streaming was going to be transformative was based on a view that there are loads of people who really had an interest in interactive entertainment, really wanted to pay for it, but just didn't want to have a console. I'm not sure that turned out to be the case.
Obviously.
Yeah. Which plays into part, again, with Stadia just didn't hit. Like, their business model just wasn't working. And I want to say, like, I almost feel like this is super telling, because anytime CEOs talk, they're like politicians. Everything they say is with purpose, and they will misspeak often, or politicians will, but like CEOs tend to, everything they say is very strategic. I feel like that's kind of important when he's like, which is why we supported the release of Stadia with 3 titles initially, and will continue to support high quality streaming services as the business model makes sense. But he doesn't say specifically continue to support Stadia.
Yeah, he's getting ready to negotiate a new contract with them.
Yeah,
he's trying to threaten to tell them that maybe there's somebody else talking to me of some tech you don't know about. Maybe Amazon's talking to me.
Yeah,
or
specifically xCloud, which is getting closer and closer to having an or a launch. And Game Pass just got Red Dead Redemption 2 on console. So like Microsoft and Rockstar are working together, or Take-Two are working together, to where they supported Stadia with 3 titles at launch, which was okay. Like, Red Dead Redemption was definitely one of those ones people were super excited to play. Like,
it's like 30% of their title launch library.
Yeah. But like, everyone was excited because everyone wants to see like the best version of Red Dead Redemption 2, and they just kind of didn't deliver it. And just because maybe the infrastructure wasn't there, the quality just wasn't there.
I think that the developers are having a harder time understanding how it works, because like, even recently, like, you'll hear like it's coming, it's coming out on January 1st and on, PS4, Xbox One, PC, and then it's coming to Stadia soon.
Yeah, or like, the Borderlands thing where it's like, hey, Stadia, when Borderlands 3 came out on Stadia, they specifically said it was running an older version compared to the console versions, to where it was just like
totally contradictory to what they were saying you're going to be able to do.
Yeah, you were going to get the best version of Borderlands, but that was not the case. And then also just when he says at the end where they thought consumers just didn't want to pay for a console, and then you know, that is definitely not the case. And I think COVID kind of puts an emphasis on it in terms of, you would think with everyone staying at home, maybe Stadia would have blown up in terms of a demand for it or people wanting to play it. And I just haven't really seen that. But I have seen shortages of PS4s, Switches.
Yeah, we saw like April MPD numbers, like some of the best numbers ever.
Yeah.
But the thing about it too is like, yeah, you saw the shortages for PS4s and for Xbox Ones and you know, or you know, Switches. Like Switches all of a sudden were like selling like huge price, high markups, like third party sellers. I was actually like interested in Stadia again, like and thinking about like, okay, I could get a Chromecast Ultra like at my job, and I can get, you know, like I don't know where to go buy a controller. Like, yeah, that's the problem. Like you don't, it's not out there. If you aren't in the world and understanding, even if you're in the Google ecosystem, like you don't walk into Target or Best Buy or Walmart or Meijer or any of these places that have electronic stores, GameStop, like you don't walk into them and see them and see like the box there that says buy me, because part of the reason I don't think it's in these stores is because there's no return shopper experience to buy Stadia. This is part of the reason why we're so far away from a fully digital ecosystem, because in terms of how do you get somebody to sell your digital ecosystem? What benefit do the stores listed that I just listed get by selling Stadia in the store?
Yeah.
Because you don't come back to them to buy a game for Stadia.
Yeah. And we saw that with the Vita towards the end of its life cycle, or at least I saw that working at Target. They eventually just put all the Vitas in the back because there was no games to put under the Vita because they were all going digital or just not being produced enough. And that killed the Vita a little bit faster because retailers, a big retailer like Target, was just like, we're just not going to even put this on our shelves anymore. So like with Stadia, like I know like Best Buy's have like a little Google like stand, but I don't believe I've ever seen a Stadia in that little Google stand. I see Chromecasts and Nests, but I've never seen a Stadia in that little kiosk.
It'd be totally fine because, you know, somebody like, you know, like you or like me, if I could just plug my Chromecast, I would buy a Chromecast Ultra if I knew that I could just connect does my DualShock 4 connect to my television or to the Chromecast? Does my Xbox controller connect to my Chromecast or my TV? I would even not be opposed to playing wired. Like, can I plug this into my TV or into my Chromecast and play the game? Like, if that would work, like that'd be amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like, coming down into my office where you guys see me stream sometimes or all the time when I stream, coming down here can sometimes feel like a chore. Like I'm coming to my desk to do something, to play a game, to record a show, to take notes, to do all that stuff. I mean, and like I knew that when I moved my systems and everything onto this desk, that it could kind of start feeling like that. But there is a desire and a tangible desire sometimes to sit on the couch and play my video games. Yeah. And I can't do that right now. I can. My son's PS4 is here, but it's not all my stuff is downloaded. But for me to be able to just, you know, get home and to sit on the couch and my wife puts on her phone or Owen, you know, play with toys on the coffee table in front of me, and for me to be like, hey, you know what? You know, I want to load up Destiny really quick and, you know, knock out 2 bounties.
Yeah.
And then shut it down. And I could just play for 10 minutes or 30 minutes and like half pay attention to what I'm doing, or to play Monopoly with my family on the couch. But the number of hurdles that you have to jump through, like, is it going to work with my TV? Is it compatible with my soundbar? Like, there's too many things there.
Yeah. It was a mess. It was one of those things where I feel like Stadia just, as much as we thought we were ready for it, they weren't ready for it, and they fumbled that potential that Stadia could have had. It's not dead in the water, but we mentioned it every time we mention Stadia, could be dead in the water for Google, and Google can pull the plug at any time. Yeah. I have a hell of a Stadia library because, you know, the premium games they keep giving away, but
if you don't hold that premium subscription, you don't get those games.
Yeah,
it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great. Like, I'm still staying to this day. If, you know, Cyberpunk comes out and I don't need to worry about what my PC can or can't do because I have it on Stadia and I can run it, and that the server does all the back work for me. Like, I'll play something like that, or like I mean, God forbid if EA ever gets in bed with Stadia, like Battlefield games or Activision's and their Call of Duty games that like I've heard like they're just super taxing on even high end PCs.
Yeah.
And if that hurdle can be eliminated, they have a gold mine there. But they've got to figure out a way to get that in the hands, like to go after the Call of Duty player and tell them like, hey, you don't need a $400 box to play Call of Duty and Madden. Like buy this.
Yeah.
And just buy your game every year and you don't have anything to worry about. Because they're not trading the game in. By the time they trade Madden 20 in, they're getting like $4 from GameStop for it because they know they're trading it in for the new one. So that consumer is not trading in Call of Duty. That consumer is not trading in Assassin's Creed. You know, like they just go to the store and they like, oh, it's November. There's a new Assassin's Creed out. I played the last 4. That's the only game I play. Here, give it to me.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what it is. That's a huge base of players that they could capture, but their marketing is just garbage.
Yeah. And like the best option for me to play Stadia right now is at my PC when I would much rather play it on my couch. And I just like I would have to get a Stadia Ultra, which I don't mind, but like the controller thing is kind of annoying.
Is it worth $80 to play at your couch?
Yeah. And at that point, like I have a PC that can run most games at a decent like quality, and I also have a PS4. So it's like I'm going to buy it on a PS4 or PC, especially if I have a PC that can run it on high already. Am I really going to get that much more of a benefit to run it on high or ultra on Stadia when I know it's going to look like I'm streaming a video? Because even though like I've had like the optimal Stadia experience and I can still see like I'm just streaming a video, I can see it doesn't.
Latency and lag. And,
so it's, I don't know. I want Stadia to be better, but maybe it will one day. But it looks like Take-Two. It feels like Take-Two is like maybe testing the waters with other things, or like pulling back a little bit on how they're going to support Stadia in the future. All right, let's get into some PlayStation talk. Originally this week, Sony was going to have a PlayStation 5 reveal event for games. I believe just games, not specifically the console, but for games, which is something me and Dave were really excited about. Luckily and unluckily, unfortunately, Sony had to read the temperature or read the room and realize that making a console announcement during everything that's going on right now just wouldn't fly. There's more important things happening in the world right now, so that event was delayed. Me and Dave do want to do a reaction podcast whenever that event does happen, separate from the main podcast, depending on when they actually do it. Like the original plan was me and Dave Thursday night, we're going to record our thoughts and feelings on it and then post it on the main feed separate from this episode, but that's not going to happen. We still plan to do something like that whenever this event does happen, schedule pending, because we don't know when they're going to replace this event. But that doesn't mean we are without PlayStation 5 news. So a couple things have come out. The first thing I want to talk about is Sony has issued I don't know how exactly to say this when they do this. They issued like a mandate that starting July 13th, any game submitted to certification beyond that date needs to be compatible with the PS5. So automatically, if you're submitting your game to certification, you need to make sure it's running on the PS5. So they are adding something to the PS4 developer kit that basically tests the game to make sure it would run on a PS5. So they want to make sure backwards compatibility is working out of the box for PS4 games after July 13th. A game is deemed compatible with PS5 only if the submission code runs without issues on Sony's next-gen machine and provides the same features on PS5 and PS4. This is coming from Eurogamer, who actually got to look at the official documents. PlayStation is working to ensure the PS4, or making sure... PlayStation is also working to ensure PS4 games run on PS5, though it previously said it would pass issues which need adjustment to developers to handle. So, backwards compatibility with the PS4, or with the PS5, has been kind of weird messaging. This I also think is a little bit weird messaging with how things are going. I think me and Dave have debated more than we should on like what Mark Cerny meant.
Yeah. I don't think this document was meant to be publicly viewed.
No, it definitely wasn't. I don't think so.
Because it's got some bad things in here too. Like, I guess the first thing that I see is like, if I'm a developer and I'm making a game that's going to be certified after July 13th, at this point in time, why don't I just hold it until PS5 comes out?
Yeah. And also it makes things even more confusing is because we're talking about certification date. We're like after July 13th, the games should be compatible with PS4, but that's if they were certified. Not games that are releasing. There'll be games that release in August and September that were certified before July 13th. Yeah. So those games can have issues.
It sheds too much when your competitor is coming out and saying everything will work and it'll just work, and then you guys are coming out and saying some things might work, and if it doesn't work, it's on the developer to make it work.
Yeah,
like that's bad.
Yeah, especially when Microsoft is going out of their way to say they want the entire Xbox One library to work on an Xbox Series X, and they are going to put the work in and kind of not let it be the developer's problem. And Sony's take is if there is an issue with backwards compatibility, it is up to the developer, which some of these developers that have PS4 games early in the generation might not exist right now, or they might have been sold to another company and have been torn apart. They don't care. Yeah. And when you have Xbox Series X, Microsoft talking about like HDR might be possible for the backwards compatible games from older generations. It's just kind of insane how this still sounds like a mess on Sony's side. And when Mark Cerny talked about like the top 100 games they know work, or they're aiming to have the top 100 games work on the PS5 from the PS4, that was confusing. And then when they backtracked and was like, well, in theory, most of the games should work, but they might need work on them. And then this being like, hey, there's now a solid date where it has to work, which then just anything before July 13th, this makes it seem like it's going to be a toss-up on... Yeah,
but again, with most of these games, like if you get certified in July, you're submitting for certification past July 13th. Your game's not coming out till September, October,
potentially,
maybe?
yeah, depending.
It's like, why? You might as well just, at that point in time, if you're going to be that late, you might as well... Yeah, I know there's 100 million PS4 users, but make it work on PS5, develop it for PS5, and then it should just work on PS4, in theory. Not make a PS4 game that can run on PS5. Make a PS5 game that will work on PS4.
Yeah, which I guess I guess that in theory would be a thing, but yeah, it just makes everything just kind of confusing.
I just feel like it's easier to downscale a game.
Oh yeah, downscale. But then you're releasing two versions of the game if they want to do that, which then also causes confusion.
But I'm saying work on the harder version, and then the PS4 version you just know will work.
Yeah, I guess this would only help maybe the smaller developers who can't publish on both things, or like have no plans for a PS5 version of the game.
Right, but I mean, at the same time, like, I guess I get what you're saying. Like, okay, here's your PS4 disc that's just going to run better on PS5. But if you have to put the effort and the development time to make it run on PS5, you almost would be foolish not to release that SKU.
Yeah, if you're putting the work into it.
What if you run into a situation, and who knows, like the marketing behind this, but if you run into a situation for somebody only owns a PS5 and doesn't own a PS4, and they walk into a store, in their mind, they're going to think, for the most part, I can't buy a PS4 box game.
True.
Like I have to buy PS5 games.
Yeah. And
so they're not going to know that game, works on PS5 because it has a PS4 logo on it.
They would have to start putting another ugly sticker thing on the box art that's like compatible with PS5.
Just the top of the game, PS4/5.
Yeah, which man, I'm starting to hate some box art for like the VR games and stuff, because it's like PlayStation 4, PlayStation VR, and then it'll have like another ribbon that tells you which controllers you can use, or if you need like,
Yep.
Yeah, so that just adds a little bit more confusion to it all. So they probably would have to add some sort of sticker to PS4 games.
Pain in the ass.
It's going to be like, I remember it was like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. They were basically putting stickers on them or releasing them with new box art that said works with Xbox One.
No, they had the thing. They had the top of the green box that, like how it says PS5 or it says Xbox One. It actually on the top, like the borders would say
360
/ X1.
Yeah, so that we'll probably end up in situations like that.
But I mean, at that point, again, I'm still saying if you're going to go through that much, whether it's Sony doing it or the developer doing it or the publisher doing it, like just make a PS5 game that works in PS4.
Yeah, especially to your point when we're talking about digital.
Yeah.
Like if you do the work, you know it works. Does that mean these games will pop up in the PlayStation Store as a PS4 game, or will they pop up as a PS5 game? And then that also adds...
That gets into a huge debate, though. Like, are we going to have 2 stores? Is Sony going to have 3 different stores?
I think they're going to have 3 different stores because not everything's going to be backwards compatible. How annoying would it be for someone to type a name of a game in that their friends recommended on the PS5? Or like, especially like when we talk about PS4, PS5, we just say PlayStation, you know? Yeah. So what if you tell me like, oh, you should play Fallout 4 on PlayStation, and me only having a PS5 go, oh, okay. And I type in Fallout 4 on my PS5 store, and then it's grayed out. I can't purchase because they don't know if it's compatible. Like, how fucking crazy would that be? They were probably going to have a 3rd store, which means they'll probably be this much closer to closing the PlayStation 3's store, which already runs like shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I can't imagine. Like, I know PlayStation stores can now tell, they can't tell what discs you own, but they can definitely, even if you don't have it downloaded, it won't let you, like, it won't let me buy, like, Division 2 Premium Edition because I have Division 2. It makes me buy, like, a different, it says, like, unavailable, or it'll say purchased.
Which sometimes can be confusing, too. Sometimes I want to buy something, and it'll say unavailable, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know, like having 3 active storefronts like sounds like a pain in the ass versus it just saying, hey, this is a PS4 game, you own a PS5, this may not work. And that sucks too, because like it's just terrible again when your competition's like, yeah, it's just one ecosystem, it's fine. Yeah. And then Sony's like, well, it's one ecosystem with like 6 asterisks. It just looks bad.
Like, just we have a separate store, but it says PS4 in that. You can click on that, and it shows you the compatible games that are confirmed.
Well, and that's the question they still haven't answered. Is like, you know, Microsoft's kind of answered it with saying if you buy it, you know, you buy Halo on Xbox One, it's going to work on Series X, but like, I don't know, like Division 2. Is it gonna just work on my PS5 when I sign in with my PSN? Yeah. Am I gonna, you know? I mean, I'm sure I'll have to download it, which is fine. But is it gonna know that I own it? How is it gonna do that if there's 2 separate stores? Yeah. Like, there's so many questions that we're less than 6 months from launch. We don't know the answer.
If it's not a confirmed compatible game, will it even run? Will it pop up an error saying like, we don't know if this will work? Will it let you load it at all? Like, there's so many weird things. Like it's. There's going to have to be some sort of like, they're going to have a bullet point in like the box that says backwards compatible with PS4, and then there'll be asterisks of this.
Clear as mud.
Okay, so the next story here, Sony's Jim Ryan, who's now like a head of PlayStation, he did an interview with GameIndustry.biz where he talked about a bunch of stuff. So this is like, I highly recommend checking out the article for more details. I picked out little things that I found interesting. The first one is he doubles down on, despite the current state of the world and current issues with the economy, specifically like the North American economy, which is still like the market that gets the most attention, they are going to release the PS5 this holiday. Like, he is confident it is going to release this holiday.
There might not be any games for it, but we're going to release our system.
Yeah, there might not be any games for it. There might not be a big supply of them, which actually might be beneficial to them based on how the economy goes, because if they can't produce a lot of them, they can still sell out of that small amount that they have and be like, hey, it was a success, we sold out. But in reality, it's like, well, we didn't make that many. He specifically says, which I love this, that he feels the value, not the price, the value of the console will sell the console itself. The exact quote is I think the best way that we can address this, this being the price of the console, is by providing the best possible value proposition that we can. I don't necessarily mean lowest price. Value is a combination of many things. In our area, it means games. It means the number of games, depth of games, breadth of games, quality of games, price of games. All of these things and how they avail themselves of the features set of the platform. So, this is CEO talk of saying, we're going to have the most expensive console on the market.
But it'll be the best value because of what you're going to talk about later.
Which, to a certain extent, is true in terms of, like, their studios. I can confidently say I love Microsoft to a certain extent, but their first-party studios at PlayStation have put out a higher quality of games over the last, like, 5 to 10 years. So there is definitely value in there, but that doesn't matter to the average gamer when Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto are the highest best-selling games every month. Those are third-party games. So it's the value proposition, which in the previous subject we just talked about with backwards compatibility, Sony isn't really... they don't have their messaging correct, and if they're trying to present this as the best possible value, I don't think they've done a good job yet, and it's also because they've been so silent. But I just it's so weird with Sony. Like, this event could have like calmed a lot of worries that I have, but we'll just have to wait and see. And I'm still worried that this event isn't going to be what I want or what a lot of people want, and we're going to come out with some questions. So, Dave, what do you think about this value proposition?
I mean, yeah, it's always, worrisome in terms of when we're so close and there's just not information. I mean, compared, and I've talked about it till I'm blue in the face, but today's June 1st when we're recording this episode. In previous years when PS4 launched, we're 14 days away from seeing the console and knowing how much it cost. Mm-hmm. And now we, even let's take, June 4th, we would have seen games, but I think the rumors were we wouldn't have seen the console and we wouldn't have gotten a date, we wouldn't have seen it, and we wouldn't have gotten a price at this event. That's what the rumors are stating. So in comparison, like, this bubble jumble that he's talking about is great, but you gotta price it, and you gotta say what's coming to it. And hopefully this event that they're gonna have, whenever they're gonna have it in the next, I think it's gonna only be like a week delay.
Yeah, same.
That they gotta hit a home run, and they swung and missed with the Cerny talk, whether that was for public or consumption or not for public consumption, or they decided to make it for. You still swung and missed. Yes, I know you were gonna have an event and you decided to delay the event. Delaying the event is the right choice, but maybe. I don't even know. Maybe you release another blog post with some new feature this week, silently.
Maybe just do a simple tease of just like Insomniac's logo. Something.
Just show the UI screen. Show a screenshot of the UI. Let these people go crazy about what they think like each little individual folder icon is. Like, I don't know. Like, I know there's a lot of crap going on right now, but like just saying, oh, we'll talk like like it's weird. Like, I don't envy being in their position, but then this article coming out of him like saying this stuff and talking to, like, this is going to be really bad for him, for Jim Ryan, if for some reason something happens and they can't release the console this holiday.
Yeah.
Like, him doing this quote is not a good thing.
Yeah. It doubling down on the holiday thing. I mean, Microsoft's doing the same thing of doubling down, but also I feel like Jim Ryan, he just hasn't had the best look in the industry in terms of like his quotes have always been kind of bad. So like I feel like his quotes are definitely inspected way more than like Phil Spencer's.
How bad will Sony and Microsoft look if, God forbid, we have a second wave of this virus in the fall, in October and November, and there's people lined up outside of stores to get these consoles? Like, how bad will that look? We've all seen it. Like, what is Black Friday going to look like if COVID is a problem again when people are pitching tents in front of Best Buys or Targets.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
which, like, second, third wave, be damned, people will line up for Black Friday if the stores are lighting up.
And they'll line up for a console launch too. If November 10th, the PS5 comes out, it's $500. Like, people will be in line to flip the console. People will be in line because they want it, and people will be in line because they feel like they have to.
Yep.
You know, like, hopefully you and I will be lucky enough. We'll pre-order it on Amazon and it'll just come right to our house. Like,
yeah, but like, Amazon's the way to go. Like, I don't even care what price it is. I'll pre-order it on Amazon. They won't charge me until it ships, so I have time to think about it. But it's just, and then he mentions, like, like you said, he mentions the difficulties of working from home to launch a console. But you mentioned how hard it is to work from home to launch a console, but then you double down that we're coming out this holiday. So, like, he's already talking out of both sides of his mouth, and he already, at least in North America, for anybody that's, like you said, anybody that's a PlayStation fanboy or fan, he already rubs Americans the wrong way. Jim Ryan does, in terms of, like, the approach that he's had and how he's presented things from some of the stuff that he's done from Europe. If anybody's following PlayStation, it seems like the rumor is that Jim Ryan and Sean Layden were butting heads, and Ryan won. Yes.
And everybody in North America loved Sean Layden.
Yeah.
They didn't understand why he was leaving. So now, he's coming off a little, I feel like, just reading through some of this stuff, he's coming off very brash, and I hope he can live up to it.
Yeah, because
we've seen a brash Xbox come out, and when they were releasing Xbox One and saying, well, you can, where they actually said, well, if you want to have if you need to have if you don't have a stable internet connection, we have a console for you. It's called Xbox 360. Yeah. Like,
we've seen this before. Or Ken Kutaragi saying, if you can't afford a PS3 or whatever, you should get a second job, or you would want to get a second job to buy a PS3. Like, we've seen this before, and it has backfired every single time.
Yeah, and I'm very worried if they come out and say $600 and we're in a depression.
Yeah, which we are in recession mode right now. We're possibly very close to depression mode. So, it's... And again, this is a North American problem, the recession depression thing, but still, like, it's the market they go for.
I mean, everything he's saying in this article, games will be more expensive to develop. Again, the optics on this are just, I mean, I get it. Like, I'm reading more of the bullet points you have on here. Yeah. Hints that PlayStation Studio exclusive games will be PS5 only. So, like, great. Like, I that's cool. Like, you're saying something, but at the same time, the optics on this are bad. If you want to have a cool experience, you got to have this new thing, and your competitors coming out saying, play where you want. Well, It might not look as pretty, but you can play it. Yeah.
Which is huge. Like, I totally understand, like, his point of, like, they want to have a different and bigger experience taking advantage of the hardware, by having the games developed only for PS5. But from a public standpoint, that doesn't look good, with your point of, like, Microsoft just being like, play it on anything. Play it on a PC. We don't even make money off the PC, like we do if you bought our console. It just looks bad. And I know some people will defend it. Even part of me wants to defend, being like, I want a only PS5.
No, I want it too. I've been saying, show me next gen games, like, and I want it. But saying it like this, games will be more expensive to develop. We do believe in generations, and whether it's the DualSense controller, whether it's 3D audio, whether it's multiple ways that the SSD can be used, we are thinking that it is a time to give PlayStation community something new, something different that can really only be enjoyed on PS5. Yeah. Great. Awesome. But at the same time, these quotes are all telling me, and along with the quote that we talked about earlier of, like, certification stuff working on it has to work on PS5, is that from a consumer standpoint of what I've been doing for a long time and covering video games and working retail industry, is that we don't give a damn about PS4 anymore.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the people, like the fanboys, people that are super into gaming also, we understand, like, the PS5 exclusive benefits, but the everyday average consumer the reason PlayStation sold 100 million. The hardcore gamers in that 100 million is, I don't know, Dave, what would you, like 1/5 of that number, maybe? Less?
Yeah, I mean, 10 million, 12 million.
Yeah, the people that will buy it day one are the hardcore people. The people that buy it the first 6 months are the hardcore people. After that, it's casual. And when you look back at how the Xbox One came out, even though Microsoft backtracked on so many of the things that they said about the Xbox One when it launched, as someone who worked retail and had to sell Xbox consoles, the shit that Microsoft said that they backtracked on didn't reach consumers when they backtracked on it, to where there was 2-3 years down the road of the Xbox being out and people were asking me at the store almost every week, I need to always be connected online for this? And it's like, no. Like, so all this stuff that they're messing up on messaging, you only kind of get one chance with the mass audience.
And don't get me wrong, I don't want people like coming at me. Like I want next gen experiences. I want them.
Same.
Saying it like this in an article is 10 times worse than showing me a trailer that says only can run on PS5.
Yeah, that Unreal tech demo was the best thing said about PS5, and it didn't even come from Sony.
Right. And you show me whether it's Spider-Man 2, Horizon 2, whatever the hell the game is going to be. And at the end of the trailer, it says only on PS5. Like, you don't even have to say only can run, but it says only on PS5. Like, kudos, great job. Do not release a quote on an article from Game Industry or Eurogamer or whatever it is that says we believe in generations and we believe in providing you something new. Because I promise you at this event, there's going to be from Sony, either from Sony directly or from a Sony studio, or I mean from a studio that Sony's paying, one of their old school or older exclusive titles is going to get upscaled for PS5. Yeah. So don't, and again, these quotes I think are bad.
Yeah, these are the type of quotes, these would be fine if we had the reveal already and the announcements, because then people would be wowed by the first impression. These as a first impression aren't great. And again, when I talk about not being great, I mean for like mass consumption, for the casual eyes.
Well, two of your top, I don't even know, what does Sony have, 12 studios?
I think so.
Two of them are pretty much out of the game right now at launch. Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch are out of the game. Like they can't. Is it too soon for Guerrilla? I think it's too soon for Sony Bend. Like so now you're down to like 8, and then like is it too soon for Insomniac? It might be really close. I don't think Insomniac's. Yeah, like it's not. I mean, God of War is only 18 months old.
Same thing with the Spider-Man's even younger because they came out later.
It's like now you've eliminated half of your studios. Like what's the other half? It's not Sony San Diego because they're MLB. So now we're down to like 3 or 4 studios. Like what is this launch lineup going to look like?
And Gran Turismo is a franchise that has been I feel like been getting diminishing returns in terms of its appeal.
Is Sony Japan going to have another version of some kind of type of knack style game? Yeah. Is that what we want at launch of PS5? That's not what I want.
Yeah. It's definitely a time where you can't rely on third parties just to have the best version of their game on your console. Because
do you think we're going to have a third party exclusive on PS5?
No, but I'm saying like they can't rely on a third party being their crutch of like, look at how great this game looks, because it's going to be like, well, the potentially cheaper Xbox runs this third-party game, like,
or my PC can run it.
Yeah, so it's definitely weird. These quotes, it's always weird when they do stuff like this, because it's just like this interview would probably work so much better if we knew more about the console. This is a weird way to prepare us for a reveal.
Yeah, this looks way better if you announce Horizon Zero Dawn 2.
Yeah.
Way better. Or this looks way better if you put a title up there that's God of War 2 with I don't want to spoil the ending of the game, but with so and so's thing in the background.
Yeah, that sounds even weirder.
Somebody's gonna get mad at me if I said it. So, so
or
like,
if we knew the price already, because then it would be like the Band-Aid's already ripped off, and then he can pitch of like, hey, it's this price. because of all these features that are in this machine.
Because I'm sorry, it's important, but I do not care if your game loads 44 seconds faster than my game loaded on PS4. I don't care.
Yeah. Though I mentioned this on the Active Quest show, where I was thinking about, I was sitting down playing a game and I was at a really loud loading screen, and then I had to think about like how much of my life have I wasted at a loading screen. But I think I'm the only one that would think of that. So like I'm happy about the faster loading screens, but that gimmick I'll be done with that gimmick after like the first day.
It'll just be expected. Yeah. Once it happens the first time, it'll just be expected. If it takes longer because it didn't load correctly, you're gonna be like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
So
the first time, I'm gonna be like, "That loaded really fast," and then I'm not gonna think about it anymore.
Right.
And it's just a thing. Especially knowing that the Xbox One is going to be pretty fast. Not as fast, but pretty fast. But it's still going to be faster than I'm used to, so the impression breaks down. And I've had an SSD for years, so I'm used to fast.
So I know we've been going pretty long with the news, but I know we don't really have a lot to talk about from playing. But something else that's not on here that doesn't feel like it happened in the last 7 days.
Destiny?
No, State of Play, Last of Us 2.
Oh yeah, I completely whiffed on that. I did watch it.
I did too. So.
Yeah. All right, we'll just change gears to that. What did you think about it? The last Vita owner in the world was murdered.
I have some concerns that I thought initially. So I guess my question to you is: do you think that we play as Joel at all?
I think early on maybe. And I haven't seen any spoilers, so don't think that's me.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be similar to if you played Last of Us 1. You're going to have a similar experience. Yeah.
It's like 10% Joel at the beginning, 90% Ellie is how I'm going. No one spoil us if you've read the spoilers. Fuck you if you do.
Yeah. The other thing that was a little bit concerning to me is the different... I guess the only way I know how to call them is different factions in the world that you're going to go up against.
Yeah.
And then like I'm all for it, but this game looks tremendously brutal.
Dude, like I put up a post in our Facebook group and I'm just like, does anyone else get a sense of anxiety when like watching the game? And I'm going to have to play this game and I'm just like, man, I'm going to be anxious. There's something like I think it's because Naughty Dog's so good at building tension that the game just gives me anxiety because they're so great at world building and atmosphere. But then also I think what like plays a part in my anxiety of like, oh, I don't want to fuck up is my attachment to Ellie. You know, because I was Joel protecting her throughout the first game.
Yep.
And then now to play as her and putting her in these situations is like, oh my God, I'm going to be a nervous fucking wreck playing this game.
Then also like the thing that's going to be in your mind too is like I've seen, I don't necessarily want to spoil it, but they're sitting there saying it, Last of Us 2 isn't necessarily going to be as linear as Last of Us, the first one was. So you might miss something.
Yeah.
That's anxiety enough because I don't want to miss like an important story beat or even a side beat that relevance to something else like 2 hours later.
Yeah.
Like that's scary.
Yeah, I like the linear aspects of the first game.
The game looks gorgeous. We knew it was going to look great. It's going to play great. It's Naughty Dog. Like those things are all there. The broad world kind of telling, giving you more insight of what's going on, like time frame wise. Like I was all for it. And then seeing the gameplay and how that stuff's going to work. Like it's great. I just hope it's not too menu heavy. Like the crafting, like they did such a good job of being able to kind of craft and still like it was important to go hunker down and make something in the first game. I just hope that that's still there. I'm okay with not huge gameplay revolutions as long as if you can continue to tell the story great.
Yeah. And man, I will have to credit Sony on something. The Ghost State of Play, fantastic. And this one was fantastic. And they need to continue with this when they showcase games. Though they don't have any other games to showcase except Iron Man VR. If they wanted to do a State of Play, probably wouldn't be a bad idea, but there's a demo available for it, so yeah, that's probably the thing to do, which I need to check out, but I think it requires Move controllers, and I don't have Move controllers. So I need to probably order some. But yeah, it looks great. Like I'm super excited about this game. I'm going to be super nervous and have anxiety while playing it. And because it's dealing with, post-pandemic, I have other different feelings while playing this game. It's definitely going to be one of those games where I'm probably going to need to have cooldown periods in between sessions where I play something happy. Because I have a feeling this game is not going to have many giraffe moments like the first one did.
All right, so that is it for the news. We're going to jump into what we're playing and watching. And like I mentioned earlier, I cut my hand about 4 or 5 days ago. I got 5 stitches next to my right thumb. Yeah, that's my right hand. I'm left-handed, so it's not the end of the world, but it's in a pretty bad place. So if you take your thumb and flex it over, like you're trying to make like the number 4, that crease that you make, that's where I cut my hand. And so that kind of limited a little bit of what I was playing. But with all the stuff that's been going on too, it seems to just hanging out with my family. We bought, again, I don't know if I talked about this last week. Did I say that I saw the Sonic movie?
God, I don't remember. Last week seems so far away. I don't think so.
So we rented and watched the Sonic the Hedgehog movie because Owen, quote unquote, air quotes, wanted to watch the movie, and he made it about 20 minutes into the movie. And then he kind of gave up and went to go play. That movie's actually not that bad.
Yeah. I'm glad they fixed his character model. So makes it more watchable.
Jim Carrey was really good in that. I forgot how funny he can be when he
wants to
and gets into his role and kind of stays in the lane that I personally like him to stay in. He's really good.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And then we also, again, on an Owen recommendation or an Owen pleaded, and my daughter wanted to watch it too. We rented or bought, I can't remember now, because now with like these movies that are coming out, I think we bought on Vudu the new Scooby-Doo movie. Scoob, yeah, that's what it's, and that's an animated movie with kind of tells the story of how like Shaggy found Scooby, and again, it was okay. It had some pacing issues to it, but that was one of those ones where it's like renting it is $20 or purchasing it is $25. I'm like, let's just buy it. It's $5 more. And I was like, I told my wife, I was like, I asked her, didn't tell her, but I asked her, I was like, is this one of those ones that was supposed to come out in the theater? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, all right, just buy it. Give the people the money that they deserve.
So that they can fucking do this more, because I don't want to have to go to a movie
I guess
theater.
Ultimately, if I think about it, like there was 5 of us that watched it even for 20 minutes at $5 a piece. Like we're still coming out on top.
Yeah.
So, and I own it now. So it's like, even if, those are like the 2 major ones that we watched. I did remember last week I was Mr. Rogers. So I mean the time that we spent between recording seems like it's an eternity. Other than that, like some basic movie watching. We're still trying to get my daughter to watch some more of the Marvel movies. She got a little farther. She saw like the first Avengers. She's starting to piece things together and ask certain questions about certain things. And I'm like, you just got to watch. And, because like when a character, I don't know, Avengers is how old? Can I spoil this?
Super old.
Okay. Whatever. If you hate me, you hate me. Just tweet at me.
The first movie or what movie?
Avengers, the first Avengers.
Oh,
yes.
Dude, you're fine. That's like 10 years ago, it feels like.
When Coulson dies in the first Avengers, she's like, wait. I'm just like, you just got to watch. And she's like,
keep going.
And she's like, but it's been pretty good there. I spent some time with my son. We have ESPN Plus now. I've been, again, just trying to pass the time because there's nothing like I'm sports needs to come back somehow.
WWE Network just started a free version if you get real bored.
I got plenty of stuff to watch on ESPN Plus before I go to WWE. But, there's a lot of college football, like the greatest stuff and some of the documentaries. And I haven't watched the Lance Armstrong documentary. I want to. Some of the feedback I've heard on it seems like it's really good. I'm really excited, like I mentioned before, for the Juiced biography or the 30 for 30 on Sosa McGuire. Like, I can't wait for that to come out. And then just... like I'm just riveted at how like the rumors of what the NHL is going to do and the NBA is going to do and the MLB is going to do and the Players Association for the Major League Baseball coming out and saying, we don't care how much money you're going to lose, you should still pay us the same amount of money. Like it's like a fascinating soap opera right now. And then something else that I learned the other day that I was very intrigued by was like the NBA players don't get game checks for playoff games.
Yeah.
So if they if they just jump right into the playoffs, like technically the players aren't paid.
Yeah.
So they're in this negotiation with the league. And again, anytime anybody puts the statistical numbers on something, you're always like, wow, like the NBA walked away from 284 games.
Yeah.
And that's 284 game checks.
Yeah.
Times 12.
We're right now watching the millionaires versus the billionaires in sports.
Yeah, it looks bad. Like I'm saying, like you got people on unemployment and the baseball players like Bryce Harper coming out and saying, I'm not taking a pay cut.
Yeah.
You know, like that looks bad.
And then
but
David Price paying like $1,000 to every
minor leaguer in the system.
Yeah, for a month.
Yeah, so and finding out that some minor league teams are taking care of their players and some aren't, because it sounds like the minor league baseball season is just done.
Yeah,
like even if Major League Baseball plays this year, like the minor leagues aren't happening.
Yeah, they were giving them $400 a month, and when the argument would be like, well, they're not playing, and also someone's got to pay them, and they're not making money. But when you think about it, it's like billionaires aren't paying them, and they'll be fine.
I think that my wife read some statistic that the Oakland A's owner could pay every single employee he has in his entire administrative system, and it'd be like $10. If to us.
Yeah, it'll be a drop in the bucket, a fraction of a percent for him. Yeah, it's crazy.
But I mean, there's a reason that these guys make so much money, and that's part of it. So that's neither here nor there. But it's just fascinating to watch it and to see how things are going, and to see like NASCAR thriving and UFC thriving and the ratings. And it's. But I just want my sports back. I want baseball. I want to watch a live baseball game. I want to see a basketball playoff game. Hell, at this point, I'd even watch hockey that I haven't watched in like 12 years.
But not wrestling.
Yeah, not wrestling for me. Sorry.
Okay.
So that's it for playing and watching for me. Like I dabbled a little bit with some Destiny stuff, trying to see if I could play with my thumb. I can control a mouse pretty well, so I need to unbox this. I need to unbox this Rocket keyboard and mouse for you guys and do a video unboxing for that, and then actually start using it and then do a review on it. So
just wear gloves so no one sees your ugly scar.
You can't really see it though if I hold it right. So. But that's it for playing and watching for me.
Your daughter or something.
Makeup on my hands. Come on.
All
right, go ahead. What you got?
For me, so I've been dabbling a little bit more in XCOM Chimera Squad. Didn't get super deep into it, but played a couple more missions. It's been really hard to focus on a video game. I was actually going to stream Sunday night and play a game, but literally it's been helicopter sounds and sirens, and because it's fireworks season, fireworks. So Gunshot or Firework, which is a game everyone plays every year, is really distracting right now. So played a little bit of Chimera Squad. And then a game that I bought last year when it came out, Donut County. This is the game where you basically are just controlling a hole and you're trying to get everything to fall into the hole.
I watched Johnny as a boy play this game, and that game looks really weird.
It's really weird. It's really funny. The reason I'm playing it is because I was like, I'm going to try and get some easy platinums or finish some games that I just never finished. And I played it for like a half hour, and then it dawned on me on why I stopped playing it. There's not enough depth, and as funny as the game is, playing it just gets kind of boring after a while because it doesn't really expand beyond just moving a hole and have everything fall in it, and there isn't really too much of a challenge to it. So I'm kind of working my way through it. The trophies have you do little specific things, so I might pull up a trophy guide just to work towards the trophies as opposed to just getting it casually. Tetris 99 has been my go-to comfort game before I go to bed. So I've been playing Tetris 99. I haven't won a Tetris battle, a solo Tetris battle, since the game launched, which makes me sad. But I've won a couple of the team games because they have a mode where you pick a team color and then you face off against all the other teams. So I won a couple of those just because it then cuts the playfield down to, 25 or so. So it's like, okay, I only have to beat 75 people, not 100 or 99.
So you got carried to wins is what he's saying.
No, there's a couple times where I won it, but it just made it so much easier because they were damaged enough towards the end. And then Overwatch Season 22. I did my place. It's been out for 3 years. Season 22. I did my placements for the support class. Got put in low platinum instead of my usual like mid platinum. So I'm working my way back up. The community's still thriving on consoles, surprisingly. It might just be more because people are at home. So I really haven't had to wait too long unless I want to play on offense, because apparently everyone plays offense, but they don't want to play support or tank. So just playing that a lot, just still doing my support thing with Moira, being a support DPS, which, man, when it works, it works. But when it doesn't work, it's a battle. And then I finished the last Harry Potter book last week, and I'm amazed at like how I went 20 years without getting spoiled on these books. Mm-hmm. Like going into the ending, I knew nothing about what was going to happen, and I get spoiled on stuff I'm not even interested in all the time. So the fact that I went this long and all of my friends read these books and never once was I spoiled, I'm kind of impressed. I feel like I can avoid spoilers when it's something that I don't like. When I actively try and avoid spoilers, I end up spoiled. Like, it always happens. But for whatever reason, I just went this long with it. But like, I see why the book series has like super devoted fans. Like, it is damn near perfect in terms of watching reading the books as they improve with age and they kind of like grow up as characters, and like the quality of the writing grows as you read them. Just because I guess J.K. Rowling did a really good job of knowing that from book 1 to book 7, a lot of time would pass, therefore the audience would grow with the books. So seeing the maturity over the years and over the books grow was interesting. And also, just like everything in them seems like they had purpose. Like, it didn't feel like, or it didn't read like it was written on the fly, or it was reacting to like feedback from fans. I feel like now, if you want to do like a large series like this, the way like cancel culture works, there would be too many things where you would have to adjust on the fly based on the fan reaction or critical reaction to things. And it was nice to read a book that's like, okay, the author very much seemed like they had a plan day one, and you can see all the seeds being sowed in the first book and the second book and make it all the way to the end without having to pivot or compromise, which was refreshing and just made me hate Game of Thrones even more because they fucked that up. And then a documentary from NoClip, who do amazing video game documentaries. They did a special or documentary on Arcane Studios that I highly recommend checking out. Arcane Studios, the developers of Dishonored. It's fascinating because they actually have footage from 3 games that were canceled. One of them no one knew was in existence. And the 3 games were Return to Ravenholm, which was going to be a Half-Life game. It potentially could have been Half-Life Episode 4 or a standalone Half-Life game, which is crazy because Half-Life Episode 3 never came out. So like, this was Valve planning and working with other studios to continue the Half-Life library, saga. And it never came out, and it was the first time anyone has seen gameplay of the video of the game, and it was in the documentary, which was fascinating. And then Crossing, which was, I believe, 2009 game that was, it had the idea that we see often now of allowing other players to take over NPCs in your game, and they couldn't get the tech to work, and then there was disagreements with the publisher, who was going to fund more of the game, and then they got an offer to work with Steven Spielberg on a game called LMNO with EA, and they jumped ship from that game to LMNO And then that just fell apart, like most of the games that Steven Spielberg was going to work on when he announced, and it was going to be a big deal that Steven Spielberg was working with games. So seeing Arcane Studio, a really good developer, have 3 canceled games that if any one of those games would have released could have dramatically changed the landscape of gaming. Like if they successfully released Crossing Paths, we would have seen that idea of players taking over NPCs way sooner than we saw it like now. Now it's like, even the last couple of years, that's an idea that's now just being able to be done. So we would have seen that 10 years earlier than what we're seeing now. Steven Spielberg could have had a big game and could still be in video games now, and then we could have had a Half-Life sequel 10 years earlier that isn't VR. So like just seeing how many canceled projects they had that could have been like revolutionary, or not necessarily revolutionary, but they could have been important pillars early on, just fascinates me, of like how many games are canceled, like how many ideas. And like the Half-Life game, they were only 1 year away from finishing that game, and Valve was just like, nope. And you know, it's just I'm baffled by that, of like how much work can be put into something and then just have a publisher to say, no, we're not going to go this direction, is just insane to me. And then the last thing I'll talk about is the launch of HBO Max that launched. And
that
I
have that for free because I have AT&T phones.
Yeah, it was sloppy, that launch.
It doesn't work on Roku or Fire Stick.
Nope, doesn't, because they haven't finished negotiating with them. If you download it on PS4, which I had to do, it sends you to HBO Now, and then when you load HBO Now, it says HBO Max, and same thing on the phone. If you type in HBO Now or HBO Max on your Android store, it sends you to HBO Now, you load HBO Now, and then it says HBO Go, and then the app turns into HBO Go, or HBO Max. It's confusing because they have like 3 fucking services.
But I have HBO Now on my Roku.
Yeah, but it doesn't, it was such a mess. And then there's a lot of great things. I watched That Thing You Do, which is one of my favorite movies that I've been thinking about buying on Blu-ray. Watching Teen Titans, the cartoon on there, from like 2003, which is great. So watching that, but they're missing so much content. So they have Doom Patrol from their DC Universe streaming service, but they don't have the Harley Quinn cartoon. They don't have the Swamp Thing TV show. They don't have Teen Titans or Titans on that. They don't have all the DC movies. They have the DC Extended Universe movies, but they don't have like the Dark Knight trilogy. They don't have the Tim Burton Batman movies. There's so many weird gaps in their library because they're spread on different services, to where it's just like, why did they do this? They could have waited a couple years and got their library together, and that would have been fine. But it was just weird. Just Disney, when they launched it, did it right. They made sure they had all of their shit before launching, and there was one app to download. HBO Max was just like, they band-aided it, or like super glued, duct taped it to HBO Now, and didn't have all their libraries. There's like some movie franchises that they have the sequel, but not the first one. They have the first one and the third one, but not the second one. There's just so many weird gaps. It's just so confusing.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on there, but damn, they messed that up. But that is it for me.
All right. We're going to jump into some questions and some comments pretty quick. We're running a little bit longer than normal. Chris from Active Quest Show, which is a show that Michael's been on once or twice?
Once. Last
Once.
week. There's links to them in the last episode.
Yeah. Do you think Ape Escape series could get a revival on PS5? Could take the spot of a family-friendly game like Knack for PS4? I'd go bananas if they decide to remake the first game. Don't care about Ape Escape, nor have I played it.
I think there's always a chance. the Apis, I have a feeling it's going to be one of the PS5 games that is going to be announced. Though I think fans would be underwhelmed if Ape Escape takes a slot of a game that they feel like a bigger game could be in. Just because it was last year.
Does that fit into Jim Ryan's quote of, of new generation of gaming?
How many? Do you know how many apes they can fit on a PS5 screen? I think it was last year the Ape Escape developers, who don't tweet often, tweeted out like an image that hinted at Ape Escape, which means that maybe they're working on something. I think it's very possible. I don't think we're getting Knack 3. I feel like they would do nostalgia.
Well, okay, here's full ignorance on my part then, because I really don't. Who makes Ape Escape?
So I think now it's just Sony Japan does it. I would have to look. It's definitely like Sony Japan, but it's like a branch of that. Okay.
So here goes any chance of me ever being on Active Quest, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I want new IPs. I would rather, I guess in my mind, I'd rather see a new, like I said, a sequel to Horizon, a sequel to Spider-Man, a sequel to God of War, or something completely brand new at this point in time. Like, I'm ready for, I don't want to go back to a PS1 or PS2 game. Like, I'm kind of done with that.
Yeah. I can see it happening. It would be super weird if it is in, like, the reveal event. I mean, that would be a nice goodwill thing, but man, you want to talk about getting people annoyed, but, like, doing, like, a remaster remake as one of the reveals would probably get people kind of agitated. Yeah.
All right. One of our Patreon supporters, Randy Sprouse, writes in, finally catching up on the podcast. I'm only one behind now. Love the guests that you had so far. I think Michael was making fun of me because I liked Breakpoint and finished it. As I've mentioned before, I've been a gamer since gaming started, but I'm new to the business of gaming. I've been learning a lot by listening to you guys, by taking a look at the studios and people making games. I find it all fascinating. I sometimes struggle with some of the terminology used during the show. For example, the episode I'm listening to, I think is number 30, has Michael using the phrase artillery studio a number of times. What do you mean by that? Is that a studio brought in to supplement another studio to do grunt work, or is that something else? Thanks, guys. Always love the show.
Yeah, so Artillery Studio, other terms for it would be support studio. I've also heard the term platoon studio, which I'm guessing is like the baseball term for like that player that comes off the bench and can play any position.
Yeah. Jack of all trades kind of thing.
Yeah. Artillery Studio is just the one that I've heard the most, and it also just sounds cooler. It's the bringing in the artillery. That is a support studio. When I believe we mentioned it was when Tony Hawk was announced. It's being developed by Vicarious Visions, and previously they were a support studio, almost like a little bit bigger than a support studio because they put out the version of Destiny, right? Like on PC.
Yeah, it's like Vicarious Visions did a lot of that. For the PC version, some of those people, and then just because I know Randy plays Destiny, I've played with him, just to give him a little bit of perspective. I know you went into more detail in the Facebook group answering this question for him, but just to give him a different perspective that I think he would understand. Vicarious Visions did the entire Destiny 2 Warmind expansion that came out prior to Forsaken, and then they also did the Season of Opulence expansion or season that came out prior to Shadowkeep. That was the last thing that they had actually worked on with that split with Bungie split from Activision. So what that allowed Bungie to do as a studio is to focus on the Forsaken content and to focus on the Shadowkeep content while their extra studio, aka Artillery Studio, was working on other content. So they were kind of able to skip over a chunk of something. Not necessarily skip over it, but maybe not be as concerned with it because the other studio was working on it. Hence why I think that Bungie is struggling right now to produce consistent content, because the stuff that's coming out this month, June, is stuff that somebody else would be working on prior to this.
Yeah. And working on like a specific platform, and now they're after doing all that extra work. And other examples are Raven Software. They haven't developed the game specifically in a while, but that's because they are a support studio for Call of Duty. So sometimes these studios will
they
disappear.
make all their maps, aren't they doing it? Aren't they?
Yeah.
Aren't they literally like making the maps for Call of Duty?
Yeah, they make maps, and I think they might have had a bigger hand in some of the battle royale aspects.
And we've seen a quote unquote artillery studio turn into a pretty big player. Respawn for a while was considered to be an artillery studio to EA, right?
They're kind of turning into one a little bit, which is why they're having the president of Respawn like work with other studios in EA. So,
but I think they did some groundwork that they were able to prove that they could do good content, and then to get them to reach out to maybe to make a new game. So you've seen some studios kind of move their way up the list by doing some of this grunt work for these other studios, proving that they can do something, showing a publisher that they can do something to get the investment.
Yeah, I don't think it was Respawn just because they have the Infinity Ward lineage. But yeah, no, like definitely there's different parts of DICE that have been doing that sort of work, and DICE got to make one of DICE's extra studios got to make I think Battlefield Hardlines, or like there's different aspects, which is
don't
why
reference that game.
yeah, but that's why like now DICE LA is going to make their own game now. Is like they are a proven commodity in terms of like, hey, we can help support Battlefield games, and now they just they have Vince Zampella running them, so they're getting their shot to be like a studio that makes its own games. But it happens a lot. Ubisoft's all their studios are technically like support studios just because how massive their games are. But yeah, it's a definitely a common thing. And if there's ever any terminology that me and Dave use, definitely ask us. We'll explain it on the Facebook group like I did and on the show.
All right. Last question of the night comes from Stefan Wren. Since 2020 sucks balls so far, can you name one happy gaming memory from 2019?
2019 seems so long ago. Probably, I don't know, E3. I've been getting kind of nostalgic for E3, which is why if you check out the bonus episode this month of June, we talk about E3 for a good hour and a half.
Look at that suave plug.
Yeah, I've been thinking about E3 a lot. I think E3 was a pretty good time last year. It was kind of crazy at parts, but I liked the way we like divided and conquered. It was the first time it was just me and you having to do everything, and I think we did a pretty good job covering E3. That and going to Disney last year. Disney was fun last year. Me and Sarah went. I desperately want to go back.
That's not a gaming memory, cheater.
I don't care.
I'm gonna cop out because I was thinking about this today after I saw the document, but I'm gonna do an easy cop out and I'm gonna go the cheap dad route. Launching of DDG is my favorite gaming memory from 2019.
Oh yeah, that would have been a good one. I kind of seem shitty for not picking that one. Hey man, that was like stressful as well.
So, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. Spotlight, very basic, just like we talked about at the beginning of the show. Just treat everybody fair.
Yeah.
Don't like Michael says, don't be a dick.
Yeah. It's going to be rough the next, for the foreseeable future, but we'll hopefully get some change in the world.
Yeah. As mentioned before, social links are in the show notes. They're on our website, digitaldaysgaming.com. That's it, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Dang, you just talked about your proudest moment was the launch. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember the website. You pay for it. I don't pay for it. But yes, like in the show notes on the the description for the show, everything's there. Please, again, like we mentioned, leave a review, share the show, tell a friend, tell the guy you're standing 6 feet apart from that what you're listening to while you're standing outside or wherever you're standing. And again, please, everyone, be safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Wash your hands. Don't be a dick. And check out our Patreon if you want to. And if you don't, that's fine. Subscribe. Like Michael mentioned, there's a bonus episode for June, E3 stories. There's still the bonus episode for May that's there. That'll still always be there. It's our retail stories. And then we're thinking of July of doing a little bit of origin stories for us about how we got into what we got into. If you have suggestions, again, please tweet at us, put them in the Facebook group, any of that stuff. And as always, we are looking for feedback on Patreon. But as I've mentioned multiple times before, do not feel obligated to support us on Patreon. It's something that if you feel that you want to show us support, we love and appreciate that support, whether it's $1, $3, $5, or $7. And we try to associate a value with that. For $3, you get access to Discord. For $5, you get the podcast early, 1 day early. And for $7, you get the bonus episodes that we just talked about. So if you are financially inclined to do so and you want to, that would be great. If you don't, that's fine as well. Listen to the show, share the show.
And so like iTunes reviews are really important for us. It helps us get more coverage. So if you can please review us on iTunes. I believe we're hovering around 30 reviews in total. I should probably just lay down the challenge. Another podcast is doing a challenge. Maybe if we hit like 50 reviews, Dave has to watch a whole WrestleMania.
Wait a second.
Hey, I said it on the show. Angela, don't edit this out. If we hit 50 reviews, Dave has to watch a WrestleMania.
Can I pick the WrestleMania at least?
It has to be within the last 10 years.
You suck. All right. I hope everyone has a great week. Stay safe. Keep moving forward. Talk to you later.
See ya.